perfect sense that he would have that gun out. Now Trayvon confronts him like, dude, why are you following? And he sees the gun. Guess what's about to happen? He's going to try to get this dude up off of him, number one. This creepy dude who's following with a gun, he's thinking this dude, it's a life or death situation. That makes sense why Trayvon would hit him at that point. Either he had drawn the gun already or he was drawing the gun and Trayvon sees this. So he hits him. Makes perfect sense. Would Trayvon be acting within his... Yes, according to the law, he has a right to stand his ground at this point. And we know that him hitting him is way less force than this man going for a gun. Who's using more force or who's about to use more force? The person who's going for the gun or the person who hits him to stop him from going for the gun or stops him from being able to use his gun. So he hits him. A tussle ensues. Because remember, both the defense and the prosecutor never explained how does it start at the top of the T and work all the way down here. Like maybe, I think they said it was maybe 600 feet away. It was a good distance away. It was a good distance away from where it started to where it ended. Maybe not been maybe like 60 feet. It was a good distance away. There, you couldn't explain the gap between where it started and where the fight ends, where we see all the stuff. It would make sense if they were fighting over that gun, though. It would make sense that you see the wrestling and the tussling, a theory that the prosecutor could have easily have presented to the jury. Now, why would Trayvon be on top of George Zimmerman hitting him? Because the gun's out, and he's trying to make him let go of the gun. So that would explain why he has him down, and he's hitting him on the ground. Makes perfect sense now. Would he be acting with himself? He would be defending himself. George Zimmerman's story doesn't matter anymore. If he has the gun out, of course Trayvon Martin has a right to hit him. You have a gun out, so I have him down, and he's punching him. He could be hitting his head up against the concrete. If you have that gun out, you don't get the claim, I thought my life was in danger or anything. You can't do that anymore. He has every right to use whatever. He has a right to use deadly force to make you let go of the gun. So that means John Good's testimony wouldn't matter because it would be confirming with the prosecutor's story. George Zimmerman pulled a gun. Trayvon was trying to beat him to make him let go of the gun. Why would Trayvon... that would also explain why Trayvon's yelling for help. He's beating this guy to make him let go, and he's yelling for help simultaneously. Because he knows if he stops hitting him, or if he relaxes, or if anything like that happens, this man's going to shoot him. And ultimately, we know that's exactly what he did. He knew he was tiring out, and he was eventually not going to be able to keep hitting this man to get him up. And this man, all he needs is one shot. And that's exactly what he did. That's why Trayvon's screaming for help. But as soon as Zimmerman puts all the help cries stop. Listen to Zimmerman's story. According to him, he's on his back being beaten. His head's being beaten. And even though if you look at it, try it out with somebody, his arms. He's saying while he's reaching for his gun, he's screaming for help like a robot. Help, 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 help. So while you have the gun in your hand and while you're pulling the trigger, you're simultaneously yelling for help, according to him. That story doesn't sound believable. A prosecutor's story of a fight over the gun and Trayvon hitting him to try to make him let go of the gun makes more sense. It's more believable. It's way more believable than Zimmerman's story, but the prosecutor did not present that story. They presented no theory. They went with Zimmerman's theory. They said they give it that Trayvon may have been on top, but he was getting off, and that's when you shot him. People aren't going to try to hear that. That means you're admitting that he was beating his head against the ground, but you don't explain why. He has no right to beat his head up against the ground. He has no right to confront him. So you need to make a different story to put Zimmerman in the wrong, and they did not do that. They did not put Zimmerman in the wrong in any shape, way, or form. Listen to another thing that they could have focused on what Zimmerman said. After he shot the kid, after he shot Trayvon, he didn't know he shot him, according to him. He didn't know the threat was gone. Matter of fact, he said he thought Trayvon was still a threat, and that's why he jumped on him and held him down. But if you were just screaming for help because you thought your life was in danger, now that you got him down, remember, you don't think you shot him, why aren't you still screaming for help? It's a perfect opportunity. Now you're on top of him, you got his arms spread out. Why aren't you screaming for help still? According to you, you were just screaming for help, like somebody was killing you. But now not one scream for help. If you think he's still a threat, why aren't you screaming for help? The prosecutor didn't focus. I think they mentioned it one time, but they should have bombarded that into the jury's mind. That makes no sense if he was just screaming for help because he was getting his head bashed in. Why isn't he still screaming for help? He still thinks Trayvon's the same threat. He doesn't know he shot him. Why isn't he still screaming for help? If you think Trayvon is still a threat who's about to kill you, remember you thought you were within an inch of your life of dying, why did you holster your weapon? If you think he was going to kill you, you were 1 inch from dying, a second from dying, why would you holster your weapon? That makes no sense. You holster your weapon and you stop screaming for help. It's almost like Trayvon was screaming for help because you had the gun out and he was trying to beat you to make you let go of the gun. But now that you've killed him, you know there's no more threat. You were never screaming for help, so why keep screaming for help? That's the whole point of this situation. The prosecutor is required to present some type of story, some type of theory as to what they think happened. But what did the prosecutor do in this case? Use your heart. You'll figure it out. Just think about it. This is the kind of things they told the jury. Those are grounds right there for reasonable doubt. Every reasonable person said, like, dude, it's not, and as O'Mara pointed out, it's not the jury's job to use their heart or to come up with a story of their own. The prosecutor is required to present that story. The prosecutor is required to give you some idea of what could have happened. Zimmerman had multiple lies in his story. You present a more reasonable, better story than Zimmerman, you can convict Zimmerman. Why give that Trayvon attacked him and the gun was in when he attacked him? Why can't you say the gun was out? What's so hard about saying that? The gun was out. Remember, according to them, Zimmerman is so weak, this dude can barely squeeze cotton without his hand hurting. So how are you going to get a 5'11" football player off of you so you can reach a gun? According to this guy who's been training him for all these years at this MMA place, Zimmerman's just a total weakling. That he would have been hitting Trayvon, would have been like cotton, like, it would have had no effect on Trayvon. Yet he has the ability to push and get a gun. Come on, man. That just doesn't make sense. Combine that with all the other things he did. Combine that with the fact he holstered his weapon. According to him, he was screaming, but now he's not screaming anymore. It just doesn't make sense. It would have given a jury a reason to find him guilty. But the prosecutor didn't do that. And since the prosecutor didn't do that, guess what happens? That's reasonable doubt. That's not guilty. And that's something that everybody should want. This case isn't really about Zimmerman or Trayvon Martin. There's a bigger thing here. You never want a system, a judicial system, where the prosecutor doesn't have to prove their case and they'll just send you to prison. If the black people or the people who are upset about this case think that Zimmerman should have been found guilty, remember, it can happen to you. And if you think that the burden should be that low, they'll always get you. They'll always get you. You never want the burden to be that low. The prosecutor has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and they did not do that in this case. They did not even come close. They didn't even present a theory as to what happened. They didn't even present a theory. They just said, well, he may have been beating him, but he stopped. No one's trying to hear that. I'm not trying to hear that. I'm going to tell you right now, if you were beating me and you stopped, I'm going to get a good one in. I'm going to get a good one because you're not going to beat me again. Are you stopping because you're getting arrested? Or why are you stopping? It doesn't matter. At that time, when I shot you, do I still feel that you're a threat? Of course I'm going to feel you're a threat. That's totally reasonable. Why are you giving him that? Why aren't you saying to the jury and everyone else, they were fighting over that gun? They were fighting. And how would you know? Who's going to question you? Zimmerman's not getting on that stand. He's not going to say what happened. And why not? Why wouldn't he just go tell you what happened? Because he knows what he did. He pulled that gun on that boy, and that's what they were fighting over. That would explain the distance they covered. That would explain why Trayvon's on top hitting him. That would explain all of that stuff. That would explain why Trayvon has no marks on him, because Zimmerman isn't trying to hit him. Zimmerman's trying to get that one shot off. That would explain why there's no marks from Zimmerman hitting or touching him. No torn clothing on Trayvon, no nothing. Because Zimmerman has only one goal in this fight. I'm going to shoot this guy. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shoot him. That's why there's no other markings on Trayvon, like he's never been in a fight. Because Zimmerman wasn't trying to hit him. Zimmerman wasn't trying to do anything to him. Zimmerman was trying to do one thing. Shoot him. And Trayvon knew, if I stop hitting this guy, this dude's going to shoot me. That's why you don't see all them stupid marks, like he was busting and say, it's not consistent with your head getting busted. It is consistent with somebody fighting you, and you cut your head during the middle of a fight. and you got a little nosebleed. That's all he had. Totally consistent with them focusing on fighting on a gun and you hitting him, which would put Zimmerman, he would be guilty probably of second-degree manslaughter at the minimum. But that only happens if the prosecutor does one thing. They have to present that story to the jury. They didn't do that. Therefore, you left more than enough reasonable doubt. That's why the prosecutor lost this case. That's why Zimmerman was supposed to go free. That's the system we want. I'm telling you now, if you ask for different, you're going to pay for it later. If you want the prosecutor to not be able to prove their case and send people to prison, it sounds good to make you feel good for this case, but watch what happens when they come after you and your kids. That's pretty much all I got to say about this one. I'll see you next time.